Welcome to MilSpouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to telling the stories of military families, one spouse at a time. Need some inspiration as you navigate military life? Moves, deployments, raising military kids, keeping your marriage together, career issues, and more? Get an encouraging, humorous outlook from a spouse who's been there for 30 years and more moves than she can count. Join host Jen McDonald, author of the book You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse who knows that we're stronger together. Grab your cup of coffee or a glass of wine and sit back and relax as Jen talks with military spouses, both new and experienced, who will give you real-life hope and support for your own MilSpouse journey.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of MilSpouse Matters. I'm Jen McDonald, and I want to thank you so much for listening. If you love the show, I want to remind you, you can help get the stories of military families in front of even more listeners by leaving a review on iTunes. And hey, hit that subscribe button in Apple Podcast, i.e. iTunes. And you can also listen to the show on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and on milspousematters.com. So today's episode, I'm so glad to be talking with Danielle Keech and sharing her story with you. Here's a little bit about Danielle. She's a Marine Corps spouse and mama to one with one on the way. Her hubby has been active duty since 2014, and together they've PCS'd 6 times, their most recent move being early this year. With the pace of military life and her desire to be a stay-at-home mom, Danielle turned her career to content creation. Writing became the vessel in which she can fulfill her passion to spread helpful tips and help strengthen the sense of community among military spouses, no matter their branch or location. You can find Danielle on the Military by Owner blog, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook, and those will be linked in the show notes. So welcome, Danielle.
Hi.
So glad you agreed to come on. I have known Danielle, and we've met several times in real life through our work with Military by Owner. She's one of their in-house writers and doing content creation, and I just love her attitude as a young spouse. And I have to go back to the part where you have moved 6 times since 2014, because that is a little crazy.
It is. It is a little crazy. And I think everyone reacts that way. And that's totally fair.
Yeah. It's kind of not normal. So why? So, we started joking towards the end of my husband's career. We'd roll in somewhere, and then like a year later, we'd be leaving again. And he'd joke, I can't keep a job kind of thing. So has it just been like for training and
it has
that sort of thing?
Yeah. So we met in college. So we started moving. Our first PCS move was right out of college. So he went to training to become an officer immediately. And then from there, he is a pilot. So each to get to the fleet, basically, there's a series of training that you have to go through, and it's kind of contingent on what you select. So each of those moves, 5 of those moves, I guess. Yeah, 5 of those moves were just for training for about 6-month orders or less.
And you guys just got to Hawaii?
We did, yes. So this is our first long-term duty station, and we're supposed to be here for several years, which is...
And you're not going to know what to do with yourself.
Not at all.
Next year, you're going to be thinking, it's time to go.
I know, not at all. It's so interesting just to view this area as our home for a long time. Like to think that my son will probably be starting kindergarten right before we go. And that's a lot to think about.
Where's the longest place you've lived up till now?
I think Florida was. Yeah, he was in the training pipeline there for a little longer than expected. So we were there almost a year.
Oh, a whole year.
I know. Can you believe it?
And then now several years, that's going to be such a big change, but hopefully a good one. You can maybe catch your breath. Here's the thing. Think about everything you've managed to accomplish so far. Just think what you can do staying put for a few years, right?
I know. It's hard to even think about. I mean, we're already coming up on 5 months here. So we'd already be thinking about the next place at this point if we were at a previous duty station. And here I don't even feel settled. I think I'm really taking advantage of this mindset.
Good. Well, you need to. And you are like the expert on short notice and moves. We'll talk about that in a minute for sure. So you guys met in college, you said?
Yes, we did. We actually met on a patriotic trip traveling here to Hawaii and then Japan as well
really?
with some World War II veterans.
I didn't know that. So what was the reason for the trip? You guys were like escorting them or?
Well, it was the college that we went to does a patriotic travel program, and it's basically just to learn about our nation's history and kind of honor our veterans and a chance for us to learn more about our country, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a really good opportunity. There were only 10 students selected and 5 veterans. And we were here for the 70th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. And then we went to Japan and got to experience that. So it was an incredible experience and a huge opportunity for us to do that with the veterans. But also, yeah.
Yeah. So what year were you there for the Pearl Harbor thing? Because I'm thinking I might have been living in Hawaii at the time.
Was it 2011?
Yes. So did you go to the services like out at Pearl Harbor or anything like that?
Yeah, out on the lawn. There was like a big ceremony. It's hard to remember because that's the only experience I had of it. We haven't even been there since we moved here. So it's hard to describe it. I just remember there being a big lawn and a bunch of veterans out there, and
and they have some of their survivors. I know there are fewer and fewer every year, but we went that year, and then we had left for a year, and then went back to Hawaii, and we went again. I think I went twice, and so we went to one on Hickam and then one at actually Pearl Harbor. So it's just so moving because. Yeah. So who knows? We could have been like in the same little ceremony and didn't even know it.
I know. That's
small world. And you didn't even know it was about to hit you.
I know.
Military spouse. What? Did he know he was going into the military?
Yeah, he'd already committed at that point. He'd already signed.
Okay.
Yep.
So how did you feel about it? Did you have any concept of what that meant at all?
None at all. So I grew up in the Midwest. The Bible Belt of the country, very conservative, but no understanding or exposure to military or military lifestyle in any way. So I kind of laugh when I look back at me approaching this and then knowing this about him. And I never even gave it a thought. It wasn't even I don't know. It was not like I had this long attraction to service members or people in uniform or anything. Right. There was never any of that. There was never any understanding of what it looked like. It wasn't even a factor really to me, knowing that about him. I just knew that we were compatible and I loved him and we were meant to be together. And from there, I didn't give it another thought. We just entered into this.
Well, so it's probably hard to pinpoint then your favorite assignment because that probably is still coming for you since
probably.
or maybe you're in it, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. When I look back, my husband and I would disagree on this big time. But I think my favorite assignment was Florida, and not because of the location so much. But our best friends lived right down the road. We had a ton of land there. Just our lifestyle was very. I mean, that's kind of how I see it when we retire someday. Was the same place that we lived there. It's where we brought Cal home, and so I think I didn't necessarily think it was my favorite at the time, but looking back, if there was any place I would return to, it would be that place. And it's
really,
but it's more for the house than for the area itself. But my husband would go back to Corpus Christi because, his time was consumed with hunting and fishing, and that's all he needs out of life. So,
so you're probably looking at a southern area to retire. It sounds like. Well, and have you talked about how long he'll be in? We have. It's a discussion that we have to revisit frequently, and I know we will again because it just kind of changes. And since this is the first time we're really in the fleet, like actually active and not training, I think that this is probably these next 4 years will probably tell, kind of what our goal is or how we see our future going. So we'll probably have to revisit it then for a more realistic expectation. But and I think you start to hit that midpoint too, and you kind of go, well,
right. And with the new retirement, with the new retirement, the way they made it, it actually, I guess it's more favorable if you wanted to walk away earlier than stay in the full 20 years. So
true.
I don't know that that's what we'll do, but I do know that's for a lot of our friends, that's a big deciding contributor.
Yeah, I bet it has changed the whole game. I mean, it really has. and it'll probably change again. Well, and I was looking back through some of your writing on the Military by Owner blog. I don't even know how many articles that you've written. You probably don't know either. Maybe you do. You're a very organized person. You might have a spreadsheet. Do you?
I don't. I'm ready for response.
He's like, maybe I'll make one now.
I have all of them saved in my Google Docs, so you can find them all there. I just don't have them logged.
Well, and I was looking back at this one you'd written, and it's, I guess when I met you, I knew that you were a young spouse, but I didn't realize how new. So this is from 2016. So you were into the life about 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just have a lot of insight. So I'll link to this. It says 3 things not to tell a new military spouse. Do you remember this one?
I vaguely, yes.
So such good points. But one of the points I really love, I'm going to read a little bit and then we'll talk about how do you look at it now and maybe like what you think are the biggest challenges are. But this was, so you wrote this to older spouses and it kind of saying, this is what a new spouse needs. And one of them was, don't tell us what our experience will be. So you say, while hearing a seasoned spouse's experience is incredibly helpful, it can also be restraining. It's natural for anyone to look at their experience up to a certain point and assume that if we experienced it a certain way, then so did everybody else. And then you go on to say, basically, they can have their experience, but don't tell you just because it went that way for them, it's going to be that way for you. And while those things might happen, to assume those things puts us in a box. We undoubtedly view our future as black and white, and when our experience falls out of line with your testimony, we panic. I just remember thinking, that's so insightful because I don't know that I could have worded it that way in my 20s, but you get around those spouses that are like, anything you try to say, like, oh yeah, been there, done that.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and had it worse,
And we've all met those spouses. I mean,
and then you just feel like you can't even open your mouth because whatever you say isn't valid. Mm-hmm. Or it's not, like you say, it's not exactly like what they experienced. So it's not, quote, right. So, yeah.
Yeah. I do remember writing that actually. And I was very nervous to write it, to be honest with you, because you don't know how people are going to take it. And I think all of us have been that person at some point in our lives. And we've all encountered a person like that at some point in our lives. And I think that's why I'm sensitive to it. But yeah, I mean, I still stand by that. And I think for me too, I have to be very careful because we talk about when I was new. I've only been an active duty spouse for 4 years. So I'm still obviously very new to most military spouses. So a lot of people still don't see me with credibility, I don't think. But there are always new spouses coming in, and I try to make sure that I don't set them up for failure by being that person in their lives, and let them know that they're welcome, and just be there for them and tell them like, it's going to, you're going to have your own struggles and stuff, but it's okay.
And I think that's such a good thing. I was going to ask you, are you having to remind yourself that now? Cause you do have some experience under your belt. And one reason I loved that piece was it was a good reminder to me, because even though I say I'm open and stuff, but you especially with decades behind you, you kind of go,
right.
I got this. And
which is natural. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you have that experience. Like that's totally understandable. But I think it's how it's presented is where people need to catch themselves. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like childbirth stories.
It's exactly like childbirth stories.
Where, you're talking about what you went through, and then someone else, they had a C-section without anesthesia, and, it's it's like a war story that they got to win. And
100%.
That's not what it's about. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about supporting each other.
Yeah. So. Agreed. That's so funny, that connection. Yep. That's 100% true.
So for you, what has been the biggest challenge for you in military life?
Oh gosh. At first, honestly, the whole military spouse employment, I thought, was the biggest challenge. Like I said, we started moving right out of college. So, I fully intended on entering the workforce. I wanted to have a career, and I had a lot of ideas for myself as far as that goes. But we moved from the Midwest to right outside of DC. And
whoa.
It's a very competitive area, and I didn't have the connections that I'd spent years building through college. And so a lot of my experience didn't translate over. I mean, the prerequisite for almost every job is just to have some kind of experience outside of it. And people don't look at college classes as experience. It's so challenging for young military spouses. And I thought, you know what? Okay, I'll just get through this. I'll find something. But like I said,
plus you knew it was going to be short term.
That's exactly it. So, I mean, I thought, okay, how much am I willing to put forth for 6 months just to do all of this over again? And
yeah.
So I was in kind of a tough spot, just really confused about what to do, because here I'd followed my Marine across the country. Don't have anyone. Like, that was the first duty station. So I didn't have any friends that I'd met yet. And the whole environment was new and I didn't have work. And so it was really challenging. But that's when I met Dave and Sharon at MBO. And
how did you meet them?
A mutual friend, actually.
Okay.
Trung through MBO as well. So I met her and I started babysitting for her, actually. That's how I spent my time.
I did not realize that.
Yeah. So I met her through the base and I babysat for her, and she said, "What's your background?" Because I explained my concerns, and she's very
She's very proactive.
Yes. So she understood the frustrations for sure. And she was able to help me out. And that meant so much to me. And I sat down and had coffee with Dave and Sharon, and I had no idea how great of a situation I was walking into. So
no, you did not, did you?
Nope, not at all.
So that's military by owner. And
so
they have a lot of, I don't know if maybe half of their employees are virtual. So
True.
They're an amazing company. Whoop, whoop, military by owner. Give them a big old shout out because they're great. Go look them up. So they do real estate and advertising homes for sale or rent near bases. And then they do a ton of supportive content for the military community. So articles, ebooks, blog posts, you name it. So yeah. Go check them out. Little plug.
Yep. That's nothing wrong with that.
No. So you walked into, so you knew it was going to be flexible, or did you work at their office? Because I don't know if I know the answer to this.
No, remote from the beginning.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yep. Remote from the beginning. So then I would just hide up in my house watching Netflix and just plug away at that. And it was a really good introduction for me to be able to have flexibility to be involved with the military community and still work and have something else. So it came at a crucial time in my life.
Oh, that's so good. And you've moved several times since that first.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I found at several of my duty stations or previous duty stations, I found additional work as well. Mm-hmm. But there was never that same pressure. I think I adapted pretty quickly to realize that, for me at least, having a big career like that wasn't worth it. At least not at that point in my life. I came to terms with that and accepted it. And being able to have military by owner work everywhere I go and not have to question whether or not it was going to be there, if they would let me move it with me, because I was remote from the beginning. And then anything additional was just another chance for me to socialize and make a little additional money. And that worked out really well. So
yeah. And now you have a baby with one on the way. So it's got to seem very ideal that you've got this in place, when a lot of spouses, let's just be honest, are looking for that situation where they wish they could work virtually.
100%. Yeah.
It is more commonplace, but I know people want that. So
yeah. And you're right. It is becoming a lot more common, and there's a lot more spouses doing it, but at the same time, there's still a huge need that isn't quite being met. So I do think that is the biggest challenge for military spouses. Like, I think that can take the cake easily. But since I was fortunate enough to meet Dave and Sharon early on, I think personally my biggest challenge as a military spouse has been developing solid friendships. Just because we've been moving so frequently. So I know a lot of people, quantity isn't the issue, and I don't know how much of it is being a military spouse and how much of it is just being an adult, making really good friendships. Like, it's just one of those things that's, it's just been challenging, like how to find a compatible friend and feel that same bond, I guess, that you find with friends that you meet earlier in life, either through college or childhood.
And you have been places such a short time. I think for me, something I realized in my 20s was up to that point, you kind of are always friends with your exact age mates because you're in school together, you're in college, or you have young kids, and always you're going to have peers as your friends. But I realized friendships that maybe I wouldn't have. There was one where I think I had one baby and she had 5 kids, and we had nothing of the same interests, but we became just fast friends because we just enjoyed each other's company. And so I think a lot of it will have to do with kind of keeping your options open, if that makes sense. And it sounds like you've done that a little bit already, because I know you have friends that have older kids or whatever, like Trung. And but yeah, just being open to the possibilities, I guess.
No, that's a really good point, though. And I think that's a good point for even younger spouses coming right out of college or wherever they're coming from, that don't, I guess, that haven't already established that. Or
I think the funny thing is, too, once you've moved a bajillion times, you'll start to not realize that your friends from one place don't know your friends from another place, and you'll mention them to each other, and you think they know who you're talking about. Like, wait, you've actually never met. And then, so I always had this thought, what would be fun would be to have a big friends reunion, and the only thing in common is that they're friends with me.
That would be really interesting. And it could go really well, or...
Because there's people across the world, I'm like, I know you would just love each other, and you've never met. It's all about Jen.
I think you can do that. Yeah.
Maybe like for my 80th birthday or something, everybody can get in and finally meet.
Just have a few bottles of wine around, have a few snacks. I think it'll go well.
Exactly. It'd be perfect. So you, as far as your writing and what you're kind of drawn to write, I know that you write a lot about, you guys have done DITY moves, which are do it yourselves, or what personally procured moves. I want to make sure I'm saying that correctly. You move yourselves, you're great at organization, you're great at short notice moves. Do you write about those things because you've experienced them, or like, what is your favorite topic to write about, I guess is my question.
That's kind of hard because my answer is really vague. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
It's just military lifestyle in general, I guess. Anything for military spouses, just because. And I like those topics, yes, because I have experience in them. So I feel like
you're living it.
Yeah, like I actually can give that advice and stand behind it because that's how I live.
So you feel like you're qualified to address it because you've done it so much.
Yeah, and because I don't know. There's something out there that every spouse needs to hear. Mm-hmm. And so I like military life in general and moving and those kinds of things because I know that someone out there needs to hear it because I know I needed to hear it at some point.
Well, keep your notes because you could have a book in the making. I'm not even joking. It happens.
Oh, okay. Well, you can just assign yourself to help me with that. So whenever you have the time.
Yeah, I'll just add it to my list. So if you had to say, what is your shortest notice move that you guys have had?
Oh gosh. So we've always known, I guess, that we're going to move. Like I said, because it's training, we expected to go, but we didn't know where. We didn't know exactly when. I want to say 2 weeks.
What?
Is probably like the quickest.
And you moved yourselves?
You know what? Technically, I think they have to give you a month. So I think maybe, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, but that's not always the way it goes, just because they have to do it. We all know there are exceptions.
Yeah, I think like logistically on paper, it was that way. But by the time everything was ready to go, we just had a couple weeks to get out the door and on the road to the next place.
Yeah.
So it was,
that's not stressful at all.
No. But I think the difference for us, I guess anyone knows they're probably going to be moving soon when it's coming up, but we just prepared earlier because it was a DITY move. We didn't have to worry about getting the timing worked out with the movers coming and stuff. It was just a matter of us securing the U-Haul and then talking to our landlords and stuff. So, and then packing.
So had you been kind of packing already knowing it was coming? Or did you throw it all in boxes?
No, we would always wait until it was like for sure going to happen.
Oh my goodness.
Because we don't want anything to change and then being in that kind of situation. We realize, because that's happened to us a couple of times where things will change last minute to a completely different thing. We've all gone through that at some point.
Yeah.
So I try not to act until it was like, okay, we are actually doing this. But we had a system in place, and we just bought a ton of plastic tubs, and
okay, we need
that's
to
what
hear
we
your
used.
system, because anybody else would be like, just like, this is too stressful.
Yeah.
So you do you consider yourself a minimalist in some aspects?
I would say I'm becoming one. I wasn't always one, I guess. So I guess. Like, I want my house to be full, and I want it to look good and lived in.
Yeah.
But as far as that goes, anything that we don't use on a regular basis, I don't think we need to have.
Yeah. So easy to say, so hard to do. And I think my thing is, I'm always like mentally, this is going to sound just really dumb, looking at things thinking I need to get rid of that, and that, and, cull that down or get rid of things, and then just getting around to actually doing it.
Yes.
I need to hire one of those organizer people that come in and clean out your closet for you. Just like,
well, and that's true. Like, you either have to be in the right mood. Like, if you're a sentimental person,
it's just time.
You have to be in like the right mood. Oh, it's just
time. Yeah. Well, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, then yeah.
So, like, what would
That's
be your
fair.
top tips for a short notice move?
I think really you just have to prioritize. So, I mean, there's a bunch of things you want to accomplish during a move, but when you have a short notice move, you only have a limited amount of time to get what you need done. So for us, we did not try and find a house in the middle of our move. We would wait till after we got to our next duty
So you
station.
weren't even like trying to get online, do home shopping. You just put that off. Okay.
We just put it off completely because it's hard to secure a home, especially as a renter from afar. You don't want to get a bad landlord. So it's just easier to just wait. And we were never in a hotel. The only time we stayed in a hotel, I think, with a move was for 2 weeks, but that was when we were waiting on base housing in Florida.
So you never stayed in a hotel? If you guys, did you have a camper or something, or?
Well, we would just show up and then find a place. We'd have like a list. So we would look on the road when we were driving.
Okay.
And then we would see like a couple places. And then when we got there, Daniel, my husband, would call on our way there. And when we were approaching that same day and ask if they had availability. And it always worked out where it was like a renter's market or a buyer's market. So they were always more than willing to cater to you.
So you would come into town, secure a house the first day you got there, and be like, let's unroll our air mattresses, we're good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Because we had the U-Haul, so all of our stuff was with us. And my husband would just say, hey, like, we need a place now. Like, look at what we have with us.
Oh my goodness.
Like, we're serious. Let's do it.
Wow.
So
okay, that is a first. I do not think I've ever met anybody who said they've never, until like maybe once. So like when you got to Hawaii, you already had a house. Did you go straight to your house, or did you?
No, here we had to, because you had to sign paperwork and
so you
things were
broke
a little
the
more.
chain of.
We did.
But you know what?
We stayed here in a hotel for 2 days.
An overseas move. So
yeah. And I think that's a record anyway. I know that most of the time housing here is very competitive, and you wait for months. So
oh my goodness. So prioritize. You home shop on the road. Is there anything else like for packing though? If you have such short notice, like what do you? Well, a lot of people will. We're talking about doing it yourself, but either packing or organizing, I'm sure you have a system.
Yeah, I guess depending on how much time you do have, we would just get rid of stuff. So I would go to a room and I would use that opportunity to purge, because you're not thinking emotionally about it. You're thinking about how to get your stuff from here to the next place. So we would just go through and try and get rid of stuff as we were doing it. All of our storage stuff, we would just keep in tubs, and we wouldn't have anything in there that we knew wasn't going to go with us. So all of that stuff was fine to go as it was. And then from there, the kitchen was always the last place that I did.
Yeah. So it's like the last to pack, first to unpack kind of thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. With the kitchen. Yeah. But the first thing, I mean, decor, anything that you don't need or won't miss for, an indefinite amount of time.
Yeah. Roll up those rugs.
So we use a lot of newspaper. You can get those little bubble wrap things, those rolls at Home Depot or Lowe's. So we use that for all the breakable stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
So have you found things were less likely to break when you did it versus this move that you did not pack yourselves for the first time, right? Yeah.
So this was our first actual military move. And
I'm laughing because I remember you were like,
good.
I don't know what to do with myself.
I know. Well, because they
Just
came and,
work.
they're there to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there like, okay, I should help out. This is really weird for me to not be doing this. But then I learned to really enjoy it. So I enjoyed it.
That's funny. Well, and then moving with a baby is a whole different ballgame too.
Yep, it was. So we did a DITY move with Cal from Florida to California, where my husband drove the U-Haul towing a car and I drove the other car with Cal and the dogs. And that was a lot. That was the first time we got to California, and Daniel looked at me and said, maybe we won't be doing any more DITY moves.
I was going to say, was that like your first inkling of normal people don't do this? I shouldn't say
We were
that.
like, okay, we put ourselves through that and we didn't.
And didn't some of you guys get sick?
All of us got sick. I don't know what happened. We stopped in Oklahoma, which usually spikes my husband's allergies. But Cal got sick with something and I was sick, and we're all just driving down the road, like sneezing and coughing and like look like death.
Like, why didn't we let them move?
I know. Oh, it was rough. That was a rough time. And then as we got to California, the U-Haul started like smoking, and we had like an hour left. We're like, we got to make it. Like, we've got to get there. We aren't stopping. So that was a good move, I guess.
Well, yeah. I know that you said something about how, you had intended to have a career and then kind of military life thrust you into a different path. And so you consider yourself a stay-at-home mom, work from home mom. And I'm just curious, like, what has been the biggest challenge of that for you? Has it just been the realization that it's not what you thought it was going to be, or is it something else?
No, I don't even think that. I don't know. I think I've been pretty good so far at just not really setting expectations of how things are going to go. And I think that would also be my advice to anyone else, is to just have goals by all means. But because I didn't have expectations really, aside from the whole career thing coming out of college, and that was pretty quickly corrected. Yeah. There hasn't really been much that I'm not sure.
Yeah, you're such a good little mommy. I love all your Instagram, and you obviously take a lot of joy in being a mom.
I do. That is by far. And I guess for me, the whole career thing wasn't a huge letdown, because I knew that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, you did. You did know that.
I did. Yeah, that was something that was important to both me and my husband. So as soon as we were going to start having kids, it was hard to put so much effort, I guess, into forming a career that I knew at some point I would probably let go of, to be home with kids. And I didn't know when we'd want to start having children.
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone really knows when they're ready, but yeah, this lifestyle suits us. I think there are definitely challenges. Like I said, the whole community thing. And I think that's going to change, like you said, just being somewhere a little bit longer and letting those opportunities happen. But I don't know, the whole moving thing works for us, and just being, even though the military definitely kind of rules the world for military families, being a parent has been amazing. And that's something that we can do on our own and through this lifestyle. I think it's been really good. This is a really good place, specifically here in Hawaii, living on base, raising Cal, because there's friends everywhere. There's playgrounds everywhere.
I feel so safe.
Yeah, it is. And I really like that for him. And I wouldn't want to do anything differently.
Right. Well, and I think too, I kind of fell into staying at home. It wasn't something I had planned to do until I was faced with when we had our first child. And then honestly, the joy of being with him and being able to be the one with him and offset anything, nothing else really mattered at that moment. It was to provide that stability for him and to just kind of have our little family. It's so hard. It sounds so cheesy, but until you are in that, it's just never who I expected that I thought I would be. And boy, did I jump in. And I think definitely you're that kind of mom. You can just tell
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think that's exactly right. And there's nothing like I've never felt more fulfilled. I think I expected that from work at some point, was just to feel completely fulfilled and successful. I think everyone strives to feel
Yes.
successful in life, and really I don't know, for me, having a child was that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never felt more who I'm supposed to be than being a mom.
Such a good message for military spouses to hear, because you can kind of feel discounted, like it's not really important, that you should be focusing on other things.
Yeah.
And so I think in this day and age, it's still such a good message for young moms to hear. What you're doing is so important, especially in the military lifestyle, to give that stability and that foundation and to the children and to your family, kind of being that touchstone. So.
And I think you're right, though. I think it's definitely overlooked. I mean, you look at friends back home and they're getting promotions and they're succeeding at their jobs or whatever it is that they're pursuing. And you can't help but feel a little insecure, I guess, or at least I have at certain times. But you're right, though. I mean, as soon as you think about it like that,
because I had kind of felt like what you're saying, but they were envious of our lives, because to them, they're like, oh my gosh, they just pick up and go every couple of years and look at all these cool places they've been. And, on our side, we're kind of seeing the hard stuff of it, uprooting, dealing with deployments, dealing with the kids having to keep starting over. And they're kind of seeing the positives. And sometimes it's good to look at your own life that way, through someone else's eyes, and to realize, to really concentrate on those perks and positives of this.
That's a really good
I had
point.
no idea. Like at the time, I had no idea that they were looking at it that way. Because so
that's super helpful. Yeah, no, I do like that. I haven't run across any of those people yet. So if you meet one, you can send them my
especially
way.
now in Hawaii.
Oh, that's true. That is true. Yep. Location here definitely has people. I know. You can't say anything negative. Not when there's rainbows every day.
I miss it. I do. I love Hawaii so much. It's just so gorgeous. And you're in a gorgeous part of the island.
I love it here. It is beautiful.
You were talking about what you would say to other families. So you like you said, you've been married for 4 years. If you could go back and tell yourself something to kind of prepare the young you for military life, what would you say? Or would you just be like, nope, girl, you got it?
No, actually quite the opposite. I think I would just laugh at myself back then and be like, good luck. Like things are going to change, but you're going to be okay. No, I mean, you just look back and you think about your mindset and your perspective of the world and of everything around you. And I was just really ignorant. I mean, even just 4 years ago. So I can't help but think, like, having this discussion 4 years from now, what I'm going to look back at myself now and think, no, it's just funny to see like personal growth, I guess. But yeah, I think my tip to myself and to other military families, and having such little experience and exposure in the military, I think it most directly relates to younger or newer spouses and families, is just to let go, I guess. Most, to oversimplify, just take a deep breath, because there's really no type A personalities in the military spouse community. There's definitely remnants of it. We can all hang on to different parts of it and make lists and charts and try to make plans and stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to be okay with the unknown and your inability to make plans. And you have to be okay with being independent and thriving under that. I think the sooner that you open yourself up to that and embrace it, the sooner you'll be able to focus on the positives and actually thrive in this lifestyle. You can have your ideas, but no one else really cares.
You're not worried about your opinion.
Things are just going to
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's so good.
No, they aren't.
Yeah. It's a good attitude to have, because then you won't get stressed out, because you can have all your plans and go ahead and plan, go ahead and make your list and stuff, but be ready to check it out the window. I mean, and the funny thing is, whenever somebody would tell me a story, I remember when I was younger, and I'd go, did that really happen? Are they exaggerating? Maybe they're exaggerating a little bit. Did your orders really change after you packed out?
Right.
Because, the military is going to tell you that doesn't happen. And I packed out in Germany alone. Steve was in Afghanistan for a year, and I was watching the truck. Like it was like a movie, like a fake movie. Like I'm watching the truck roll down the road with all of our belongings that I had just dealt with all alone overseas to overseas and doing all the power of attorney and all this, watching it go down the road. And the phone rings and it's Steve in Afghanistan telling me his orders have changed. And I had this panic-stricken moment.
What?
I thought, and this is my thought, I'm going to set the phone down and run after that moving truck and be like, no, wait. And then I thought, why would I do that?
You better go catch
No,
them.
don't. No, it's not.
Oh my goodness.
And I just standing there
gosh.
thinking, okay. So that little checklist, I just checked off my last thing and thought I could sit down and, have a glass of wine and be done with it until he got home a couple weeks later. Nope.
Crazy. I think that the scary part is just having to rely on hoping that everyone who's supposed to be doing a certain thing like communicates the right thing and it actually happens. Because you can do what you need to do just by calling, but then you just sit there and hope like, well, I don't know where it's going to be.
And then just like, this is uncharted territory for us.
Oh,
it's just, you have to be ready for the unexpected regardless of, that's just, to me, that story is just inconvenience. That's, but you have to be open for upheaval, for time apart. And the quicker you can get your mind wrapped around that, the better, I think, and not fight it, because fighting against it is exhausting.
Well, not only that, you're going to end up miserable. Like there's no way to like hold on to yourself and still try to control everything. And
I'm sure you've met spouses like that, and you will meet them in Hawaii. That was always shocking to me, how people could be so unhappy. I'm like, you're in Hawaii, girl.
Yes.
But they're hating the whole
but there's people who were sad, like they didn't want to come here, and I get it. Not everyone wants to be here. Like that's, yeah, there are a handful of. Military spouse community is the same as just life in general. There's going to be a little bit of everything.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just highly concentrated.
Yes, it is. That's a very, very polite way of putting it. Well, what would you consider so far, and we'll have to revisit this in a couple of years and see if your answers have changed. What has been your best experience as a military spouse so far?
I think like a tangible experience, like an actual thing, or just in general.
Whatever your answer is the right answer.
Okay. I think just for me, like the best part of the military itself for me being a spouse is just personal development and growth. So I can't really pinpoint a specific thing that I've loved doing or loved being a part of or anything, but just for me personally, I've come a long way. In some ways really good. And in some ways, not everyone loves everything about themselves. I don't know. I feel like I've grown up pretty quickly with this, and I appreciate that. And I think the difference to it. Okay. So kind of bandwagoning off of myself here, if that's a thing. Just culture. So being able to move, I think that like my personal development is due to the fact that I've moved a lot and seen a lot. And so instead of having my little perspective from the Midwest that a lot of people just hold on to because that's what they have, if they never leave home, I've had the chance to like learn a lot and to develop different opinions and to see different things that have really changed my opinions and viewpoints of things that I never really would have thought of revisiting, I guess.
What upcoming projects you have? I know you're continuing writing and you've kind of taken on some new things. So you want to talk about that? Yeah.
So within the MBO world, I've started doing videos for them as well. So you can follow them on Facebook and see my MBO Minute videos where I share helpful tips and tricks pulled from blog articles that we've posted. So I think it's great for people that don't have time to sit down and read, but have 60 seconds to watch something on their phone. So that's been fun. I write for Air Force spouse too, Carrie, who is the owner and creator of Carried Away Creative Company.
You have another baby coming, which
I do.
That's a big project.
Due February. I know. It is a big project.
I was going to say, that's
pretty time consuming if I will admit it. I know. Oh my goodness. And having a baby, being pregnant with a toddler is something else.
You got those mommy muscles. So I just remember thinking, how was I so skinny? I remember now, because when we had our granddaughter Layla here this summer, I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. And I'm just because I don't have to run after anybody all the time right now. So yeah.
I know. Yeah. So anyone who has tips,
They should just create a workout video called Toddler Mom and you just run around after a kid all day, picking up the squats, picking up the kid,
Yes. Well, he's so independent and he's good at picking up his own toys. Like he likes to be busy and to have errands. So he definitely helps out. But when he gets outside, which is most of our time, he just is independent and confident. So he'll just run off. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to change this about you because it's really good, but you need to listen and I need to not be running all the time.
Cardio. I mean, you got it, right?
Yeah. Oh, he's so fun though. I'm just tired.
Yeah. Nap time can't come soon enough.
Oh, goodness.
Well, before we finish up, and we'll remind you guys where you can find Danielle in just a minute, I'm going to close with our quick five. My husband the other day told me, he said something about a Fab Five. Apparently, I love it that he's listening. He said something about my Fab Five, and I'm like, I almost like that better. I should have asked him, but it's going to be the quick five. So it's 5 quick questions that our guest doesn't know ahead of time to let listeners know another side of you. They're nothing hard, and there's no gotcha questions, so no worries. So your first question, Danielle, is, do you prefer coffee, tea, or something else?
Oh, coffee. Coffee.
That's the right answer. Ding, ding, ding.
Yep.
So as a new mom, if you have one, what is your guilty pleasure or your escape?
Oh, binge watching Friends.
Really?
Still. Still. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen the entire series, but it's a comfort now. So I'll just have it on in the background sometimes.
Oh my gosh. So you've got to meet my daughter someday because she watches it all the time. So yeah. So what was your least favorite food as a child and why?
Oh, fish.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Seafood, but it still is. So I can't really
is it because
go
of
back
where you
on
grew
that
up? Because I'm not a big seafood fan because we were in the desert. So I didn't have access to really good seafood. And a lot of people are like, it's so delicious. I'm like, ugh, it just smells to me. Yeah.
I know. And we've lived at all coasts now. Yeah. Like we're always on the coast. So there's always access to great seafood. And people are like, what's wrong?
I think if you don't grow up with it, it's a little hard.
I think maybe that's it. We just didn't. I think my mom provided shrimp for us once, but I don't know where it came from. And
the freezer.
I didn't. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I got to go back and revisit the Friends because I should have followed up with, who is your favorite Friends character?
Oh. Okay, so Chandler is probably my favorite because of his sense of humor, but I think I most relate to Monica for sure. Like, if you can give me a vacuum to vacuum out my own vacuum.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm a little crazy like that.
That is too funny. I love it. All right, so this one, I think your husband will appreciate this next question. Just because I follow her on Facebook and he seems really funny to me. So he has a good sense of humor. So if you were a wrestler, what would be your entrance theme song?
Oh, gosh.
I've been saving that question, Danielle. It's for you.
Oh, for me? Well, you should be asking my husband.
You probably have the answer like, I got it.
Well, I'm going to answer something and then I'm going to be like, oh, that's what I should have said in a couple hours. Oh my gosh. Jen, I don't know.
We'll give you a sec. I got time.
Okay.
We can come back to that one. So we're going to
let's come
back to your wrestler theme song because you have to have an answer. What is your favorite item in your closet right now?
Oh, my gray Nike zip up hoodie.
Oh, is it because it's comfortable or just?
Yep.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
It is. It's perfect for all weather.
That's good. And you know what? People would be surprised if they haven't been to Hawaii. You really kind of do need a light jacket there because of the rain and also air conditioning. Yeah. If you go inside, sometimes you need a little light layer. So
yes.
All right. Your entrance theme song, your wrestling theme song.
Okay. Wait. Bohemian Rhapsody. Isn't there a super like energetic part to that?
The guitar riff, that part.
Yep, that would be me.
I would like to see that. I think I have your Halloween costume now. Yes. And your background music.
Well, I think I'm doing a Halloween MBO minute, so if you'd like me to.
I'm going to be looking for it. I want to hear the background, and then we'll realize it's a nod to this podcast.
Yes.
I love it.
And now the listeners will be too. Don't get too excited, everybody. We'll see if that happens.
So funny. So you can find Danielle again on the Military by Owner blog and LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Instagram and Facebook. And they have different handles if you want to give those. Are you on Twitter?
Oh, I am on Twitter. Yep.
So where can we find you on Twitter? Your handle is?
It's Danielle_Keech.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm so glad you came on today, Danielle. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
I hope it was. And yeah, I love your answers. I'm still laughing about the theme song. I'm going to have to use that question again because I just came across that and I thought that would be fun. So
you should. That should be one you ask for everyone too.
You know what?
I need to keep
my 5 favorite that I just keep reusing, but I want to keep people guessing. I don't want to give them time to think about it. See?
Yeah, they can do research that way.
Exactly. And sound really witty. So that was a good answer. Anyway, thanks for coming on. And everybody, thanks again for listening to MilSpouse Matters. Remember, you can leave a review, subscribe on iTunes, drop me a note at jenmcdonald.net, or connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. See you next week. Bye, everybody.
Connect with Jen at jenmcdonald.net or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also purchase her book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and other booksellers. Love the show? Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. Until next time, have a great week.